All right, so you've been researching ash catchers and dry catchers.
Smart move.
Yeah, trying to upgrade the smoking experience.
Yeah, definitely a question that comes up a lot.
Yeah, makes sense.
Rightfully so.
That's why we're doing this deep dive today.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at this article
Okay.
all about ash catchers versus dry catchers by the time we're done here.
Cool.
You will know exactly which one is right for you.
Sounds good.
So first things first, what is an ash catcher?
An ash catcher is essentially an extra chamber
Okay,
you add between your bowl and your bong,
I see.
usually filled with water. And as you draw the smoke through, the water traps ash and other debris.
So it's like giving your smoke a little bath
Exactly.
before it gets to your lungs.
That's a good way to put it.
Sounds pretty refreshing, but
Yeah,
isn't a bong already doing some of that filtering
it is.
with its own water chamber?
Right, a bong does filter the smoke, but an ash catcher takes it to a whole new level.
Okay.
It cools the smoke down even more, making the hit smoother and less harsh on your throat.
Smoother hits. I like that.
Plus, it helps keep your bong cleaner.
Okay, yeah, because nobody likes cleaning a bong.
Nobody likes cleaning a bong.
Right, so are there any downsides to using an ash catcher?
Well, the main one is that it adds an extra step to your setup and cleaning routine.
Huh?
You need to make sure it's filled with the right amount of water.
Okay,
And it does require more frequent cleaning
I see.
compared to just using a bong by itself.
Okay, so let's talk about the alternative. Dry catchers?
All right.
What's the deal with those?
Dry catchers are all about simplicity.
Okay,
No water, no fuss.
like a minimalist choice?
Yeah, exactly.
So what's the catch?
Well, the trade-off is that you don't get that extra filtration and cooling that you get with an ash catcher.
Gotcha.
The hits might be a bit harsher,
Okay.
and you won't see as much of a difference in keeping your bong clean.
Got it. So ash catchers are all about smooth, cool hits,
Yes,
keeping things clean, while dry catchers are about ease of use and simplicity.
exactly.
All right, so what are the main differences you should be thinking about when choosing between these two?
The biggest difference, and the one that really drives all the others,
Okay.
is water filtration.
Yeah.
Ash catchers have it, dry catchers don't.
Right.
That means ash catchers win when it comes to smooth, cool hits
Ah.
and keeping your bong sparkling.
Now, wouldn't that affect the taste?
That's a great question.
If the smoke is passing through water, wouldn't it sort of, I don't know,
It does, yeah.
water down the flavor?
Water filtration does have an effect on flavor.
Okay.
It tends to mellow out the taste,
Okay.
making it a bit less intense.
Uh-huh.
Some people prefer that, finding it gives a cleaner taste.
Yeah.
Others feel like it takes away from the complexity of the flavor profile.
So it's all about what you're looking for in your smoking experience.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got filtration, we've got taste.
Mhm.
Anything else to consider?
Well, there's also the question of maintenance. Right.
Ash catchers, because of the water, need a bit more love and care.
Makes sense.
You've got to make sure they're filled with water properly,
Yeah.
and they require more frequent cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
Dry catchers, on the other hand, are super easy to maintain.
So if you're someone who values convenience
Yeah,
and hates cleaning,
definitely.
dry catcher might be the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're all about that smooth, cool hit and you don't mind a little extra cleaning, then an ash catcher is the ticket.
You got it.
Now, I've heard people talk about using ash catchers without water.
It is technically possible, but
Is that even a thing?
here's the thing.
Okay.
If you take the water out of an ash catcher, it basically turns into a dry catcher.
What? Really?
You lose all the benefits of that water filtration.
So it's like having a Ferrari, but only driving it in first gear.
Uh-huh. That's a great analogy.
Right.
If you're going to use an ash catcher,
Yeah, okay.
you might as well embrace its full potential
Right.
and enjoy the smooth, cool hit it's designed to deliver. Okay, so water is key when it comes to ash catchers.
Water is key.
Duly noted. So we've covered the basics,
Mm-hmm.
but now I'm curious to delve a little deeper.
Okay.
I've noticed that ash catchers come in all sorts of shapes and sizes.
You do.
Does that actually make a difference in terms of performance, or is it just aesthetics?
That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Those different designs aren't just for show.
Mhm.
They actually have a big impact on how the ash catcher functions.
Okay.
Different percolators, different shapes. They all contribute to creating different levels of filtration and diffusion.
Ooh, percolators.
Yeah.
Now we're talking, I've seen those advertised, but I've
Right.
never really understood what they do.
Yeah.
Are they just a fancy way to make the smoke bubbly? Or is there more to it?
There's definitely more to it.
Okay.
Percolators are essentially extra chambers within the ash catcher
I see.
that further filter and diffuse the smoke.
So it's not just about having more bubbles.
Right.
It's about having the right kind of bubble.
Exactly.
This is fascinating. I'm starting to see why people get so passionate about their ash catchers.
Yeah, it's a whole world.
It's like a whole science unto itself.
It really is, and we're just scratching the surface here.
Well, I can't wait to dive deeper, so for everyone listening, stay tuned.
Right?
Because we're about to explore the world of percolators and uncover the secrets to finding the perfect ash catcher for your smoking style.
I'm excited! Welcome back to the deep dive!
So before the break,
Yeah.
we were talking about how
Mm-hmm.
water filtration can actually change the taste of your smoke.
Right. It makes a huge difference.
And I never really thought about it like that.
You think about it this way. When smoke passes through water,
Uh-huh.
some of those compounds that give it its unique flavor
Okay.
get absorbed by the water.
I see.
It's kind of like how a coffee filter removes some of the oils from coffee grounds,
Right.
resulting in a slightly different taste.
So with an ash catcher,
Yeah.
you're essentially getting a filtered version of the smoke,
Yeah. Exactly.
which could mean a smoother, less intense flavor.
Exactly. Some people love that.
Okay.
They find it gives a cleaner, more refined taste.
Mm-hmm.
Others, though, feel like it takes away some of the depth and complexity of the original flavor.
So it's like choosing between a light beer and a craft IPA, right?
That's a great analogy.
You're both beer,
Yeah,
but the flavor profiles are totally different.
exactly. And just like with beer, it really comes down to personal preference.
Right.
Some people want a smooth, easy drinking experience,
Yeah.
while others want to savor all the hops and bitterness.
Okay, so if you're someone who really wants to experience the full range of flavors in their herb, a dry catcher might be the way to go.
Absolutely.
You're getting that unadulterated, straight from the source taste.
Yeah, a dry catcher lets those terpenes, or those aromatic compounds that give each strain its unique flavor and aroma, really shine through.
So it's like listening to music on vinyl versus a compressed MP3.
Right, I love that analogy.
You're getting that full, unfiltered sound
Yeah.
with the vinyl, even if it's a little crackly in places.
Speaking of unfiltered, let's get back to those percolators.
Yes, percolators.
We were about to dive into the nitty-gritty.
I'll admit,
Go ahead.
I'm a bit lost on the specifics.
All right, imagine blowing bubbles through a straw into a glass of water.
Okay.
You're forcing the air through the water.
Mm-hmm.
It creates those fun little bubbles, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what a percolator does,
Okay.
but on a much smaller and more sophisticated scale.
So the smoke is the air,
Yeah,
the percolator is the straw.
right.
But what's the water in this scenario?
Good question. The water in this case is actually still the water in your ash catcher.
Okay.
The percolator doesn't have its own separate water chamber. It's all part of the same system.
I see.
But the percolator has these tiny little holes or slits
Okay.
that force the smoke to pass through the water in a very specific way.
And that creates even more bubbles,
Exactly.
which means smoother smoke.
Exactly, but it's not just about the quantity of bubbles.
Right.
It's about the quality.
Okay.
Different percolator designs create different types of bubbles,
Yeah.
different levels of diffusion,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately different smoking experiences.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those different designs.
Okay.
What are some of the most popular percolator types out there?
Well, one of the most common is the tree percolator.
All right.
It's called that because it has several arms or branches that extend upwards from the base,
Okay.
each with its own set of slits or holes.
So it looks like a little tree
Exactly.
inside the ash catcher.
Yeah. And as the smoke travels up through those branches,
Okay.
it gets forced through the water multiple times,
Mm-hmm.
creating a ton of small, bubbly diffusion.
That sounds pretty effective. What other kinds of percolators are there?
Another popular one is the honeycomb percolator.
Okay.
It gets its name from its design. It's basically a flat disc
Uh-huh.
with a bunch of tiny holes arranged in a honeycomb pattern.
So instead of the smoke traveling up through branches,
Right.
it goes through this flat disc.
Exactly. And because those holes are so small and tightly packed,
Okay.
it creates a super fine,
Wow.
almost creamy diffusion.
Okay, so tree perks for big bubbly diffusion.
Right.
Honeycomb perks for smooth, creamy diffusion.
Exactly.
What other options are there?
Well, there's also the inline percolator,
Okay,
which is a simple tube with slits or holes along its length.
I see.
It's a classic design that offers good diffusion without being too fancy.
So we've got tree perks, honeycomb perks, inline perks.
Right.
Is that all, or are there even more exotic percolator designs out there?
There are tons.
Okay.
You've got showerhead perks,
Uh-huh.
which create a shower-like effect with the smoke.
Wow.
Matrix perks, which have multiple layers of diffusion.
Okay.
And even fritted disc perks.
Wow, there's a whole world of percolators out there.
There is?
I never realized how much variety there was. So how do you know which percolator is right for you, it sounds like?
Yeah.
There are a lot of factors to consider.
There are. The type of percolator you choose will depend on your personal preferences and smoking style.
Right.
Some people prefer big, bubbly hits,
Mm-hmm.
while others prefer a smoother, more refined experience.
So if you're someone who likes those big, lung-expanding hits,
Yeah,
maybe a tree perk would be a good choice.
that's a good bet.
Okay.
Tree perks are known for their ability to generate a lot of smoke
Mm.
and create those big, satisfying clouds.
And if you're looking for something smoother and more mellow,
Yeah,
maybe a honeycomb perk would be the way to go.
exactly. Honeycomb perks are all about creating that fine,
Okay.
silky, smooth smoke that's easy on the throat and lungs.
So we've covered the basics of percolators,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm curious, what about the material of the ash catcher itself?
You're really hitting on some key points here.
Okay.
The material of the ash catcher absolutely matters.
Okay.
Glass is the most common and generally considered the most neutral in terms of flavor.
Mm-hmm.
It's also easy to clean and lets you see the smoke swirling around inside.
So glass is a good all-around choice.
For sure, but there are other options out there too.
Okay.
Some ash catchers are made from ceramic,
Mm.
which can sometimes impart a slightly earthy flavor to the smoke.
Okay.
And then you have silicone ash catchers,
Oh, silica.
which are super durable and almost impossible to break.
That sounds perfect for someone who's prone to clumsiness like me.
Right.
But does silicone affect the flavor at all?
Silicone is generally considered to be flavor neutral,
Okay.
so you don't have to worry about it altering the taste of your herb.
Gotcha.
But some people find that it can be a bit harder to clean than glass, as the silicone can sometimes absorb some of the resin and oils.
So glass for clarity and flavor neutrality.
Mm-hmm.
Ceramic for a touch of earthiness.
Yeah.
And silicone for durability.
Right. It's like choosing the right cookware for your kitchen.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So we've talked about percolators.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about materials. Is there anything else we need to know about ash catchers?
Well, one thing that's worth mentioning is the joint size.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You want to make sure that the joint size of your ash catcher matches the joint size of your bong.
Right.
Otherwise, they won't fit together properly.
That makes sense. It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Exactly. Most ash catchers and bongs
Okay.
use either a 14 millimeter or 18 millimeter joint size.
Okay.
You just double check before you buy anything
Gotcha.
to make sure they're compatible.
Good tip. I'm definitely taking notes here. So I think we've covered ash catchers pretty thoroughly.
I think so.
Ready to shift gears and talk about dry catchers.
Absolutely. Dry catchers might not have all the bells and whistles of ash catchers,
Right.
but they definitely have their own unique appeal.
All right, let's dive into the world of dry catchers.
Okay.
What are the main things we should know about these simple but effective devices?
Well, the first thing to understand is that dry catchers are all about,
Okay.
well, dryness.
Dryness makes sense.
They don't use any water filtration.
Right.
So the smoke goes directly from the bowl to your lungs
Okay.
with just a quick stop to catch any stray ash.
So it's the most direct route for the smoke.
Exactly. And because there's no water involved,
Okay.
dry catchers are incredibly easy to use and maintain.
That sounds incredibly convenient.
It is.
No messing around with water levels or complicated cleaning routines.
Yeah, you just empty out the ash after each session.
Okay.
Maybe give it a quick wipe down and you're good to go.
But wouldn't that also mean that the hits are harsher?
That's a valid point.
Since there's no water to cool down the smoke.
Dry catchers do tend to produce hotter, more intense hits.
Yeah.
But for some people,
Uh-huh.
that's actually a plus.
Right.
They enjoy that raw, unfiltered experience.
I could see that. It's like the difference between drinking whiskey neat versus on the rocks.
Exactly.
Sometimes you want that full flavor punch.
And remember we talked earlier about how water filtration can mellow out the flavor?
Right.
With a dry catcher, you're getting the full, unadulterated taste of your herb.
So it's all about maximizing flavor.
Definitely, dry catchers are for the purists.
Right.
The connoisseurs who want to savor every nuance of their chosen strain.
Ease of use, maximum flavor. Any other benefits to using a dry catcher?
Well, they're also generally lighter and more portable than ash catchers.
Right.
Which can be a big advantage
Yeah.
if you like to travel with your bong.
That makes sense. A dry catcher wouldn't add much weight or bulk to your luggage.
Right, plus there's less risk of spills or breakage
Right.
since there's no water to worry about.
Okay, so we've talked about the pros.
Hmm.
Are there any downsides to using a dry catcher?
Well, the main drawback is that they don't offer any filtration beyond catching ash.
Okay.
So if you're sensitive to harsh smoke,
Yeah,
a dry catcher might not be the best choice for you.
I can see that.
If you're prone to coughing or have a sensitive throat,
Right.
that raw, unfiltered smoke might be a bit much.
And another thing to keep in mind is that dry catchers don't do as much to keep your bong clean
Right.
as an ash catcher does.
Yeah, you'll still need to clean your bong regularly,
Yeah.
even if you're using a dry catcher.
So dry catchers are great for ease of use,
Yep.
maximizing flavor,
Yep.
and portability,
Hmm.
but they don't offer much filtration
Right.
and might not be the best choice for those with sensitive throats.
That's a great summary.
So we've covered ash catchers.
Yes.
We've covered dry catchers.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we've got a pretty good grasp on the pros and cons of each.
I think so too.
But now comes the million-dollar question.
Okay.
How do you decide which one is right for you?
That's where it gets really personal. There's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
It really depends on your individual preferences and smoking style.
So what are some of the key questions someone should ask themselves when making this decision?
Well, first and foremost,
Okay.
how important is smoothness and filtration to you? If you really value those cool, silky hits
Yeah.
and want to minimize the harshness,
Uh-huh.
an ash catcher is probably the better choice.
And if you're all about experiencing the full flavor of your herb
Right.
and you don't mind a bit of a kick, then a dry catcher might be more your style.
Exactly. Another thing to consider is your lifestyle.
Okay.
Do you travel a lot?
Right.
If so, a dry catcher might be more convenient and portable.
And what about cleaning?
Yeah, if you hate cleaning, a dry catcher is definitely the low-maintenance option.
It all comes down to weighing your priorities and figuring out what's most important to you in a smoking experience.
Exactly.
This has been so insightful.
Glad to hear it.
I feel like I've learned so much about ash catchers and dry catchers.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I'm
Okay.
curious, are there any like pro tips or tricks that people should know about when using these devices?
Ooh, I love that question.
Anything that can help elevate the experience to the next level.
There are definitely some insider tips and tricks that can enhance your ash catcher
Right, spill the tea.
or dry catcher experience.
What are some of your favorite hacks?
Well, one of my favorite tips for ash catchers
What?
is to use ice instead of just water.
Oh, ice.
It chills the smoke down even further,
Okay.
making it incredibly smooth and refreshing.
I'm definitely trying that next time. Any other cool edge catcher hacks?
Another thing you can do is add a few drops of essential oils to the water.
Really?
It won't affect the flavor too much, but it can add a subtle aroma to the smoke,
Okay.
creating a more spa-like experience.
Wow, that sounds so luxurious, like a smoking aromatherapy session.
Exactly. Just make sure to use food-grade essential oils that are safe to inhale.
Good point. Safety first. Okay, what about dry catchers?
Yeah.
Any cool tricks for those?
Well, one thing you can do with the dry catcher is to freeze it for a few minutes before using it.
Okay.
It won't make the smoke as cool as ice in an ash catcher,
Right.
but it can help to mellow out the heat a bit.
Well, that's a good tip, especially if you're someone who finds the dry hits a bit too harsh.
Right. And another thing you can do is experiment with different materials for your dry catcher.
Okay.
Glass is the most common, but some people prefer metal or ceramic
Interesting.
as they feel it can enhance the flavor of the smoke.
So it's not just about the design of the dry catcher,
Right.
but also the material it's made from.
Exactly. It's all about fine-tuning the experience to suit your individual preferences.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like customizing your smoking setup
Mm-hmm.
to create the perfect personalized experience.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings us to the final and perhaps most important tip.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to experiment.
I like that.
Try different ash catchers, try different dry catchers,
Yeah.
try different techniques, and see what works best for you.
Right.
There's no right or wrong answer. It's all about finding what you enjoy the most.
It's all about the journey, right?
Absolutely. And speaking of journeys, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of ash catchers and dry catchers.
Okay, so we've talked about all the sciencey stuff and the cool tips.
Right.
But how do you actually choose the right one for your smoking style?
Yeah, that's the real question.
Let's get practical here.
Okay.
So let's say you're someone who loves those big smoke sessions with friends.
Okay.
What would you recommend for that?
I would say an ash catcher can be a real lifesaver in that scenario.
Okay.
Think about it. You've got multiple people using the same bong,
Right.
which can lead to a lot of buildup pretty quickly.
Yeah.
An ash catcher really helps keep things cleaner,
Makes sense.
so everyone gets a smoother, more enjoyable hit.
Plus, it saves you from having to deep clean the bong. after
Exactly.
every session.
Yeah, minimizing hassle.
Right. What about the solo smoker?
Okay.
Someone who enjoys a more personal, intimate experience.
Yeah. For the solo smoker who really wants to savor the flavor of their herb,
Hmm.
I'd say a dry catcher is the way to go.
I-
You're getting that pure, unfiltered taste.
Right.
Much simpler setup overall.
No water to worry about, no extra cleaning.
Yeah.
Just you and your herb enjoying the moment.
It's all about stripping away those extras
Right.
and getting to the heart of the experience.
Here's a curveball.
Okay.
What about the smoker on the go?
Okay.
Someone who travels frequently,
Mhm.
wants to bring their setup with them.
For the traveler,
Yeah.
I'd probably recommend a smaller, more compact dry catcher.
Okay.
They're less fragile than ash catchers,
Right.
and they pack up really easily.
Yeah, you don't want to be lugging around a bulky ash catcher and worrying about it breaking in your luggage.
Exactly.
Plus, a smaller dry catcher would be more discreet.
Right, finding the right balance
Yeah.
between functionality and practicality.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything
I think so.
there is to know about ash catchers and dry catchers.
Yeah.
I feel like I could write a book on this now.
You've absorbed a lot of information.
I know. So,
Yeah.
to everyone listening,
Mm-hmm.
I encourage you to take what you've learned today,
Yes.
put it into practice,
Absolutely.
experiment, explore,
Mm-hmm.
and find what works best for you.
And most importantly, enjoy the journey.
So true.
Whether you're a seasoned smoker or just starting out,
Yeah.
there's always something new to discover in the world of cannabis.
All right. Well, on that note,
Okay.
we will wrap up this deep dive.
Sounds good.
But the conversation doesn't have to end here.
Right.
You can reach out to us with any questions or comments.
Yeah.
Share your own experiences with ash catchers and dry catchers.
Absolutely.
We're always eager to learn more and connect with our listeners.
Until next time, happy smoking, everyone.
Cheers.